My childhood sweetheart and fiancé, Ethan Gray, postponed our wedding, saying he would first take a second wife. This was because the court stipulated that women must marry before the age of 20, or the government would assign them a husband. He pitted the girl, who was already 19, fearing she wouldn't marry a good man. But he forgot that I, who had waited for him for 5 long years, would turn 20 next month. My mother took me to his door to ask him about it, only to be met with his cold reply, after waiting all these years, "What's a little longer? Besides me, who else would want her? Lena Moore, you still have your parents, but Gina is different, she only has me." Later, my mother hastily arranged a marriage for me. Fate played a cruel trick, and my wedding day coincided with the day he took his concubine. The swaying horse-drawn bridal carriage passed by Ethan Gray on his white horse, dressed in wedding attire. Our eyes met, and the color drained from his face. "Mother, I'm not going to marry Ethan Gray." My mother's hand trembled, and the teacup fell straight to the ground, shattering into pieces. Have you thought this through? I knew why my mother was so shocked. The Varan kingdom stipulated that women must marry before the age of 20 and men before 25, or the government would forcibly assign a marriage. My birthday was next month, and I would turn 20. If I didn't marry my childhood sweetheart, Ethan Gray, I would have to marry a complete stranger. Marrying a stranger meant entrusting my future to the unknown. I thought my mother would scold me or tell me to endure it, but she sighed. "I thought the Gu family's boy would be a good match, but I didn't expect him to be." "Ninger, don't worry. Even if there's only a month left, your father and I will find you a good husband." My eyes involuntarily reddened. Wasn't that what I had always thought? Ethan Gray and I had known each other since childhood. We were practical childhood sweethearts. The first time he saw me, Ethan Gray grabbed my sleeve tightly. He said, "Little sister is so pretty. I'll protect her and won't let anyone bully her." Gu's father joked, "A real man keeps his word." Yes. Little Ethan Gray nodded firmly. From then on, he always thought of me first whenever he encountered something delicious or fun. When I was young, I was playful and couldn't sit still to study. When the teacher wanted to punish me with a ruler, Ethan Gray always took the beating for me. I don't know when our friendship slowly turned into a deep love. When I realized it, I was holding the family heirloom locket he had given me as a token of our love. He said he wanted to be with me for life, one heart, one soul, and that he would marry me as his only wife. I waited for him with joy. The first year, he became the top graduate of the Royal Academy in the Imperial examination and said he would come to my house to propose marriage once he entered the court. The second year, he entered the court and said he would build a career and give me the best of everything. The third year, he held a high position and said he would come to pick me up with a grand wedding procession once everything was stable. Year after year, until 5 years later, when I turned 19, our marriage was finally settled. At that time, I naively thought that Ethan Gray was delaying it to give me a better life. But when Qing Fuzhen appeared, I realized I was terribly wrong. Qing Fuzhen was an orphaned girl I had rescued. She was running wildly in the street and was almost trampled by Ethan Gray's horse. Ethan Gray originally planned to give her some money to send her away, but I was afraid that he would be criticized for reckless riding, so I kindly took her in and cared for her. From then on, Qing Fuzhen often clung to me and became familiar with Ethan Gray. Ethan Gray said, "Ning is kind-hearted, and I can't bear to see you take care of her alone." But gradual. I realized that Ethan Gray and Qing Fuzhen were getting closer and closer. I tried to talk to Ethan Gray, saying that Qing Fuzhen was a woman and needed to keep a distance. But Qing Fuzhen suddenly rushed over and knelt down heavily with a plop, her eyes red and choked with sobs. "Miss, I don't dare to have any delusions about Gu. I only beg you to let me stay by his side. Even if it's as a slave, I'm willing." Ethan Gray's face immediately darkened. "Lena Moore, are you so intolerant? Who would want a jealous woman like you?" I stood there dumbfounded, watching him half carry Ching Fusion away. That day, it happened to be in a busy market, so everyone heard the conversation. Seeing this, the crowd began to discuss. Isn't Gu engaged to Lena Moore? Why is he embarrassing her in public? It's normal for a man to have multiple wives and concubines. Lena Moore must be jealous. A woman like that is a tiger. If you ask me, Lena Moore is almost 20. If Gu doesn't want her, she might as well marry a beggar. I felt like a soft-shelled crab that had been peeled, and the chattering discussions were like sharp knives piercing my flesh. I covered my ears and ran home desperately. Ethan Gray, who once said he would always protect me, had now become the culprit who hurt me. I ran aimlessly, unknowingly reaching the West Market. Most of the things sold here were things that women liked, and men rarely set foot here, but Ethan Gray could ignore the strange looks of others and accompany me here. This place was full of memories of Ethan Gray and me. I subconsciously walked towards a familiar place, but stopped abruptly the next second. In the distance, two familiar figures stood on Padlock on Sweetheart Bridge. Ching Fusion and Ethan Gray were embracing intimately. They were standing on Magpie Bridge, hanging a padlock on Sweetheart Bridge symbolizing eternal love on the bridge's iron chain, just like I used to with him. Jean, if only I had met you soon. Or if I hadn't been so impulsive and made that engagement. Before the man could finish speaking, Ching Fusion leaned over and kissed him. I watched blankly as Ethan Gray returned the kiss passionately. He kissed the woman in his arms as if he were possessed, kissing her so hard as if he wanted to melt her into his bones. As long as I can be with Gu, even without a title, I'm willing. I will marry you. With a grand wedding procession, all the proper betrothal gifts, from now on, you will be my honored concubine. Lena Moore will never be able to bully you again. I felt cold tears streaming down my cheeks. My heart felt like it was being clenched tightly, hurting so much that I could barely stand. I stared at them intently, and through my blurred vision, I saw Ching Fusion's provocative gaze. They left. I walked step by step onto that padlock on Sweetheart Bridge, to the padlock on Sweetheart Bridge that belonged to Ethan Gray and me. The lock had been hanging for many years and was already covered in rust. I grabbed the lock with both hands and pulled it hard. With a snap, the lock, already broken, was pulled off. I just stared blankly at the lock. Suddenly, I felt a drop of water on my hand. I raised my hand to wipe it away and realized that I was already in tears. I remembered that Ethan Gray and I had been in love for 5 years, and Ethan Gray had always treated me with courtesy, never crossing the line, not even holding my hand. At that time, I thought he respected me and was a gentleman. But seeing Ethan Gray so out of control today, I realized that love is uncontrollable and drives people crazy. All the previous things only proved that Ethan Gray didn't love me deeply enough. With a plop, the lock was thrown into the water and disappeared instantly, just like our former love. I won't love you anymore, Ethan Gray. I wiped away the last tear and slowly turned around. Behind me, a pair of familiar dark eyes came into view. Ethan Gray was low, oaking at me with a complicated expression. I subconsciously clenched my fists, not wanting him to see my embarrassed state. I had stumbled all the way here. My once meticulous hair was disheveled, my hair ornaments were askew, and one of my red jade coral earrings was missing. I looked completely lost. I don't know if Ethan Gray saw me throw the padlock on Sweetheart Bridge into the water with my own hands. Maybe he did, but I guess he didn't care. I endured the sadness and desperately told myself that this was the last time I would shed tears for this man. Ethan Gray looked pained, making me vaguely feel that he still had feelings for me. But the next second, he said, "You heard what I said just now. Lena Moore, I can't let go of Ching Fusion. I'm going to marry her as a concubine. But don't worry, I'll marry you too. You are still my only wife." Looking at his condescending, pitying look, I suddenly felt a bit ridiculous. So this was the man I had loved for 5 years. I said, "I won't marry you." Ethan Gray's face darkened. He said grimly, "If you don't marry me, who else can you marry? Go ask around the capital, who else dares to marry you? Lena Moore, you're almost 20. If you don't marry me, are you planning to marry a beggar and become a laughingstock?" My eyes widened in shock. I never thought Ethan Gray would say such a thing. Ethan Gray really knew my weaknesses and knew how to hurt me with a single sentence. Maybe it was because my face was too pale. Ethan Gray realized that he had gone too far. He sighed. "I said too much. Aning, be good. I'll give you the most glorious wedding. Aning, don't be willful. We're getting married next month. You and Ching Fushin will both be my wives then, and I won't favor anyone." These words sounded ridiculous to me. I almost wanted to ask, haven't you been favoring Ching Fushin all along? I guess people's hearts are inherently biased, so they don't think these things count for anything. I remember the Midwinter Lantern Festival that day, when Ching Fushin took advantage of Ethan Gray buying me a lantern. The girl no longer had the timidity of the past. Her eyes were full of pride. She said, "Lena Moore, so what if you are a high and mighty young lady? Ethan Gray can only be mine." After speaking, Ching Fushin jumped into the water without hesitation. Someone fell into the water. I was startled and wanted to go forward to take a look, but I was pushed away by a great force. I fell heavily to the ground. When I looked up, I saw Ethan Gray rushing towards Ching Fushin desperately. Ching Fushin was rescued quickly. She was wearing a light-colored thin dress, which was almost transparent after being wet. The people around her whispered. Ching Fushin wrapped her arms around her chest and cried piteously. Ethan Gray took off his coat without hesitation and hugged Ching Fushin tightly. He glared at the crowd with fierce eyes. Everyone knew that he was the Prime Minister's son, so who dared to offend him? They immediately looked away. Ethan Gray picked up the scantily clad Ching Fushin in front of everyone on the day of the festival, completely forgetting my existence. I sat on the ground, my ankle was sprained and swollen high, my hands were scratched, and I was in a terrible state. Before coming, Ethan Gray had sent away my personal maid. It wasn't until late at night that my worried parents found me. I was seriously ill after returning, but Ethan Gray didn't come to see me this time. 10 days later, Ethan Gray came to my door again, but he wanted to marry Ching Fushin as a concubine. "Aning, what are you thinking about?" The memories were suddenly interrupted. I looked up at Ethan Gray and said, "It's late, I should go back." I didn't want to cause any more trouble, and I didn't want to argue with him. He seemed surprised that I was so calm and indifferent, and he couldn't help but be stunned. I broke away from his hand and slowly walked home, leaving I'm alone. The next day, I went to the best embroidery shop in the capital. When I learned that I was going to marry Ethan Gray, I specially found the best embroiderer a year in advance to make my wedding dress, and I personally instructed every ornament. I wasn't going to marry Ethan Gray, so I thought about getting my wedding dress back first. But now the owner of the embroidery shop looked embarrassed and said, "But that wedding dress was taken away by Gu 2 days ago. I thought Gu was helping you take it." This. My heart slowly sank. I naturally knew why Ethan Gray would take her wedding dress. Ethan Gray was about to marry Ching Fushin, but the wedding was rushed and nothing was prepared, so he must have wanted to get a suitable wedding dress. The maid beside me was so angry that she stomped her feet. She held my hand and said with a sob, "Miss, why does he get to do that? Let's go get the wedding dress back." But I only said, "I don't want something that's been dirted. But I'll make him return it sooner or later." I took my maid back home. As soon as I entered the door, I saw a woman with a coarse-clothed man sitting in the hall with obsequious smiles. The man looked stout and had a thick beard. I asked doubtfully, "Father, mother, Who are they? The woman smiled happily when she saw me. This must be Ninger. I'm your distant aunt, a relative from 5 generations ago. I heard that the Gu family's son doesn't want you, and I'm afraid you'll be randomly assigned to those unreliable people, so I specially brought my son to propose marriage to you. My whole body shook, and I looked at the other person in disbelief. Someone! Throw these 2 ungrateful things out. My mother was immediately furious. Seeing the servants coming forward, the woman immediately became anxious. Wait. Madam Shin, don't think I'm speaking harshly. Everyone in the capital knows that your daughter and young Master Gu have been engaged since childhood. Ninger's reputation has been ruined. Who would want to marry damaged goods? Now, the other party is rushing to bring in an honored concubine first. Wouldn't that suppress Ninger everywhere in the future? Before even entering the door, they're already slapping Ninger in the face like this. If she really marries, how can Ninger have any happiness? I think you might as well recruit a son-in-law. My son is honest and well-behaved. After marrying Ninger, he can continue to stay in the Shin residence. Then Ninger will still be by your side. Wouldn't that be killing 2 birds with 1 stone? Yes. I will definitely treat a Ning well. I looked at the man's eyes, which were full of lust and greed, and endless hatred welled up in my heart. I raised my hand and slapped the man hard. The other party immediately said, You dare to hit me. How about she hits you, not to mention hitting you, even if she pulls out your tongue, you deserve it. A low male voice sounded. My whole body stiffened. I turned back to look, and it was Ethan Gray. Ethan Gray's face was gloomy, and he approached the 2 step by step. His face was still full of anger, and his aura was intimidating, scaring the other party to sit on the ground with a plop. Ethan Gray said word by word, Lena Moore is my wife. This is an unchangeable fact. If I hear you plotting against her again, don't blame me for being impolite. With a wave of his hand, the 2 hurriedly ran away, rolling and crawling. The hall was silent for a while. Ethan Gray looked at me with a smile. Ning, are you okay? Looking at the concerned expression on his face, I couldn't help but feel a little dazed, as if he was still the person who couldn't stand to see me being wronged and protected me. But the next second, Ethan Gray handed me a wedding invitation. The 8th day is the day I take a second wife. Ning, if you want to come. I heard my father gasp. The wedding invitation was as red as blood, and his and Ching Fuzhen's names were written side by side on it, but strangely, there was not a trace of sadness in my heart. I took the invitation and said coldly, the Shin family is a bit busy recently, I may not have time. Ethan Gray asked, Busy? I said calmly, Father is busy with my wedding. Finding a new husband for me. Ethan Gray's originally surprised and uncertain face immediately improved. He thought I was waiting to marry him. I watched him leave in a hurry and slowly closed my eyes. Time was short, and my father finally arranged a marriage for me, but the man was not in the capital, and I had to marry far away. I heard that he was also weak, but I heard that he came from a well-educated noble family and had a good temper. Coincidentally, the day I got married was the same day Ethan Gray took a concubine. That day, it was raining lightly. I was helped into the horse-drawn bridal carriage. The sedan chair swayed, and the low cries of my parents gradually faded away. Suddenly, I heard another wedding song. I knew it was Ethan Gray's sedan chair for taking a concubine, and the person in the sedan chair was wearing my wedding dress. Passing by the wedding procession, I only felt like I was in another world. Fortunately, I was about to leave. The sedan chair swayed, and I fell asleep. On the day Ethan Gray took his concubine, he stood at the door for a long time, until the village matchmaker came to ask, Young Master Gu, if you don't go in, you'll miss the auspicious time. Ethan Gray frowned. Why haven't I seen Lena Moore? The village matchmaker was stunned. What? Ethan Gray's eyes were dark, and his face was faintly with a trace of unwillingness and madness. She cares about me so much, she will definitely come to see me when she learns that I am taking a concubine. I don't know which corner she is hiding and crying. The village matchmaker's face turned pale, and she said awkwardly, but that Shin family's daughter is getting married today. I'm afraid the wedding procession has Aurea. DY left the capital. 05 VIP. I leaned against the horse-drawn bridal carriage in a daze and fell asleep. When I woke up, I realized that I had arrived. A hand with distinct joints opened the curtain of the sedan chair and stretched out towards me. This hand was very white and looked bloodless. I hesitated for a moment and gently put my hand on it. The person led me out of the sedan chair. I was a little nervous, and my feet became a mess. My embroidered shoes stepped on my skirt, and my whole body staggered, but fortunately, the other person's eyes were quick and he helped me. I was held firmly in his arms. Although this person was not in good health, he was strong. A low chuckle came from my ear. I felt a little embarrassed and walked carefully, suppressing my shyness. My father had told me about this marriage. It was said that this young master's name was Xia Huayan. His family was very good and he was gentle and kind, but unfortunately, he was not in good health and looked like he was about to die. The wealthy families in the capital were unwilling to marry their daughters far away, let alone marry such a sickly person who was about to die, so it had been delayed until now. My father said, his family and I are old acquaintances, so I know them well. If you can come back, Father will take care of you for the rest of your life. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I couldn't help but kneel down and cry, Father, Father, I don't want to leave you. I'm sorry, it's all my fault. If I hadn't misjudged people, if I hadn't delayed again and again, how could I have implicated my father in lowering his face to find someone to marry me? The day before I got married, I vented all my grievances and unwillingness. My mother hugged me and cried bitterly. In the middle of the night, I woke up groggily and felt someone lovingly touch my head. It was like when I was young, someone would always protect me from the wind and rain. But I knew that I might never have this kind of love again. I followed Xia Huayan into the wedding hall and performed the wedding ceremony in a daze. When he lifted the red veil, I really saw this legendary sickly husband for the first time. He was indeed very good-looking. Perhaps because he was wearing a bright red wedding dress, his face looked a little rosy. My eyes fell on his sharp and thin face, and I couldn't help but be a little dazed. This man had a pair of deep and beautiful fox eyes, his features were extremely upright, and there was a small mole on the tip of his nose. Seeing me staring at him in a daze, he smiled softly. My ears burned and I lowered my head in a hurry. Xia Huayan was not annoyed, but reached out to take off my heavy diamond tiara. Is it heavy? I'll take it off for you. His movements were very neat. After taking off the diamond tiara, he also wanted to help me take off the cumbersome wedding dress. These things should be the new wife serving her husband, but he took care of me with ease. I was a little embarrassed by him and hurriedly said that I could do it myself, but this wedding dress was gorgeous and cumbersome, and I almost tied the silk ribbons into a dead knot after struggling for a long time. Xia Huayan finally couldn't stand it anymore. I'll do it. This wedding dress is really cumbersome, it's not easy to do alone. He skillfully untied my belt, and I couldn't help but ask, this wedding dress is? Xia Huayan smiled, I personally customized it for you, it's a bit rushed, so it's probably not perfect. I was speechless for a moment. From the time I got engaged to the time I got married, it was only 10 days, but he was able to rush out such a beautiful and gorgeous wedding dress and diamond tiara. Thank you. I heard my voice was a little dry. That night, Shin Huayan slept beside me obediently and didn't touch me. He explained to me that after all, it was a blind marriage, and I probably didn't know him at all before, so I was a little scared. It It's not too late to consummate the marriage after we get to know each other better and fall in love. I felt a little embarrassed in my heart, but nodded obediently. I had a good dream all night. The next day, I obediently followed Xia Huayan to serve tea to his parents. Xia's father was kind and only married Xia's mother in his life. My in-laws treated me very gently, asking me caringly if I was used to it. After getting an affirmative answer, they taught Xia Huayan a lesson, telling him that since he was married, he should grow up and treat me well. Xia Huayan nodded solemnly. The family was harmonious, and Xia Huayan's family was easy to get along with, which made me feel relieved. "And Ning, is this your first time in Yenzhou? Would you like to go out for a walk with me?" I nodded. He took a thin cloak and wrapped it around me carefully, and led me out the door. The weather in Westport province was humid, and there were many pavilions and buildings, which I had never seen in the capital. I couldn't help but feel a little strange, and I couldn't help but look around, but in the blink of an eye, I saw Xia Huayan holding a huge peony. I looked at him in surprise and asked, "Is this for me?" "Of course." I happily took it and smiled at him happily. Xia Huayan seemed to be in a trance for a moment. I was about to ask him, but I felt a sharp gust of wind. The next second, Xia Huayan suddenly reached out and pulled me into his arms. I slammed into his arms. Between my nose was the rich fragrance of peonies. His arms were warm, and his heart beat fast, which made me a little fascinated. But I immediately woke up, supported his arm and looked back. I saw Ethan Gray staring at us with red eyes behind me. His face looked abnormally haggard, and his eyes were full of bloodshot eyes. I heard him say, almost gnashing his teeth, "Ning, I've been looking for you so hard." My heart skipped a beat. I intuitively felt that Ethan Gray was a little abnormal, but Xia Huayan was still here, and I was afraid that Ethan Gray would say something nasty, so I said with a sullen face, "Goo, I don't seem to have anything to say to you." Ethan Gray looked at me with a strange expression. "Nothing to say? And Ning, how can our 5 years of relationship be considered nothing to say? You, goo." Before I could finish speaking, Xia Huayan suddenly opened his mouth. "I think you heard about the marriage between Ning and me, and came to congratulate us specially. It's just a pity that you were 1 day late and didn't get to eat yesterday's wedding banquet." Ethan Gray's face darkened. Xia Huayan continued, "Why don't I be the host and invite Gu to a private room for a chat?" Xia Huayan's words were extremely considerate. The people who had been watching the excitement scattered after hearing the situation. They seemed to have recognized an old friend. I secretly breathed a sigh of relief, watching Ethan Gray, who had a gloomy face all the way, followed us in. After entering the elegant room, Xia Huayan naturally ordered side dishes, hot dishes, and pastries. He ironed the dishes for me and greeted Ethan Gray to sit down. But Ethan Gray didn't appreciate it, but sneered, "You don't need to act like the head of the family. I have been in love with Ning for 5 years, how can you interfere?" Xia Huayan frowned. "No matter what happened between you before, Ning is now my lawfully wedded wife. What are you, Ethan Gray?" Ethan Gray's face sank. "You took advantage of the situation. If it weren't for you, Ning would be my wife." Xia Huayan gently put his chopsticks on the silver fork rest. His original kind smile disappeared, and he asked unceremoniously, "Then why did you take advantage of the situation? What were you doing then?" Ethan Gray was speechless for a moment. I finally opened my mouth. "Goo, please go back. Now I just want to spend the rest of my life with Xia." Ethan Gray said in disbelief, "But you don't love him. How can you have happiness with someone you don't love?" "Only I can give you happiness," I said coldly, "but I don't love you either." "How is that possible? We grew up together and have been together for 5 years. Then can't you see that I don't love you now?" I interrupted him sharply, and the room was quiet for a while. After a long while, Ethan Gray's hoarse voice sounded, how can you not love me? Was all that hardship because of Qing Fujin? His voice was laced with confusion and deep regret. Ning, I've wronged you. But I touched Jin. What was I supposed to do if I didn't marry her? The gossip alone would have destroyed her. If she married another, her husband would surely mistreat her. I simply smiled. And what about me? All of the capital knows about us. What are you doing to me? Ethan Gray looked guilty. I just smiled. That day she fell into the water, guards from the yamen jumped in to save her. You knew she was a fisherwoman and a strong swimmer, yet you still jumped in. Ethan Gray, didn't you know what the outcome would be when you jumped in? Qing Fujin confessed her love to you more than once. Back then, couldn't you see it was a scheme to force you to marry her? Qing Fujin expressed her affections to Ethan Gray repeatedly. At first, Ethan Gray impatiently refused, emphasizing that he only loved me. But from some point on, he gradually stopped refuting her, even looking at Qing Fujin with a helpless, doting expression. I protested a few times, but Ethan Gray always said, Ning, she has no family and is a frail woman. Of course, I should take care of her. Besides, she's young. A young girl's feelings are always so pure and passionate. But she was only a year younger than me. When I heard him defending her, I immediately retorted. But Ethan Gray said impatiently, you have your family to protect you. Do you think those sheriff's deputies would dare barge into your home, forcibly drag you away, and force you to marry someone? But Ethan Gray never considered that the country has laws, and the family has rules. Although my father is an important official in the court, he can't defy the law. He even needs to be more careful. In the end, it was just that Ethan Gray didn't want to do more for my family. Now, he was finally reaping the consequences of his actions. I looked at him and said, word by word, Ethan Gray, don't forget that I am now married, and you have taken a beautiful woman as your wife. From now on, we go our separate ways. I only hope that we never meet again. No. Ethan Gray looked at Xia Huayan with red eyes. Is it because of this sick man? If he dies, can Ning come back to me? I was shocked, and a flash of cold light streaked across the room. No, 07 Ethan Gray was extremely fast. He was skilled in both martial and literary arts. He suddenly drew his sword and slashed out, too fast for the average person to react. I cried out in fright, but the bloody scene I imagined didn't happen. There was only a crisp clink sound. Xia Huayan had effortlessly blocked Ethan Gray's sword with a pair of silver chopsticks. Ethan Gray was clearly stunned. He frowned and subconsciously raised his sword to stab again, but Xia Huayan was even faster. With a flick of his wrist, the silver chopstick became as lethal as a weapon, pinning Ethan Gray's hand to the table. Ethan Gray immediately screamed. Xia Huayan looked at him coldly, then turned his gaze to my face. I was terrified by Ethan Gray's ferocity and worried about Xia Huayan's safety, so I must have looked awful. After only a glance at me, Xia Huayan covered his mouth and coughed a few times. Seeing his face lose all color, I quickly asked, "Are you all right?" Xia Huayan leaned into my arms, looking weak. "I'm fine, just haven't been active in a while." This wasn't just not being active in a while, he had clearly just brushed with death. My heart ached for him. I hugged him and said, "It's good that you're okay." I glared at Ethan Gray. "Ethan Gray, I wanted to give you some respect, and show some respect to our families, but you actually attacked my husband. If you ever appear in front of me again, don't blame me for being impolite." Ethan Gray's hand was still bleeding. He clutched it and said, "You're yelling at me? I'm the one who's injured. You saw it too. Xia Huayan is in such good shape. He doesn't look sick at all. He's deceiving you." I sneered. "Isn't that even better? My husband is alive and well, so we can grow old together." His face paled, and he softly called my name. but I only held Xia Huayan's hand tightly. Ethan Gray finally couldn't hold on any longer. Ignoring his bloody hand, he tried to take my hand, but Xia Huayan frowned and slapped it away. At this moment, the helplessness and fragility in Xia Huayan's demeanor vanished. He looked at Ethan Gray like a fierce beast guarding its treasure. Young Master Gu, this is the last time I'll speak to you politely. If you continue to pester Aning, I'll make you wish you were dead. Ethan Gray wanted to say something, but this time, the door of the private room was kicked open. A disheveled woman rushed in, sobbing. I looked up and saw that it was Ching Fujin. The last time I saw Ching Fujin, she was wearing the expensive clothes Ethan Gray had given her, arrogantly threatening me. But this time, she was wearing coarse linen clothes, her beautiful hair held up only by a rough hairpin. I glanced at her. It had only been a few days since I got married and she was taken as a concubine. Perhaps it was because of the long journey from the capital to Yenzhou, but she looked incredibly disheveled. Even her once fair hands now looked rough. She hugged Ethan Gray tightly and cried, "Gulang, Gulang, let's go home. I know I was wrong. I won't lie to you anymore, ah." Before she could finish speaking, Ethan Gray pushed her away violently. Ching Fujin fell to the ground, covering her face and crying, "Miss Shin, please have mercy on me. Please, just let me go." Her voice was shrill and miserable. I frowned, wondering what new kind of trick this was. She was the one who stole my marriage, the victor, yet here she was, acting pitiful and begging for mercy. I said, "Ching Fujin, I have nothing to do with you anymore. I haven't retaliated against you in any way, so there's nothing to forgive." Ching Fujin said, her face white, "The day after Gulang took me as a concubine, he kicked me out. Now I have nowhere to stand in the capital. Please, Miss Shin, plead for me." I was stunned. I never expected Ethan Gray to kick her out. A woman should marry at 20. But if she was kicked out the day after becoming a concubine, even the beggars in the capital wouldn't want her. Everyone would think she was morally deficient. I didn't care how Ethan Gray treated Ching Fujin, but these two were making me feel annoyed. This had nothing to do with me. My life was just starting to get better, but these two kept bothering me. Even a clay figure has some temper. I looked at my husband. He was looking at Ching Fujin with displeasure in his eyes. As if sensing my gaze, he looked up at me and immediately put on a gentle expression. "My dear?" I understood. I coughed lightly. "My dear, we've been out for too long. It's time to go back." I thought these two were here to catch up with me, but it turns out they're just here to cause trouble. If you see them again in the future, please help me drive them away. If they cause any more trouble, please handle it yourself." Xia Huayan was taken aback, then immediately said, "Of course. I will definitely not let anyone bother you again." He glared at Ethan Gray and quickly followed my steps. 08 I returned to the Xia residence with Xia Huayan. As soon as we entered the room, Xia Huayan suddenly knelt down with a thud. A man's knees don't bend easily, and his sudden kneeling startled me. I quickly reached out to help him up, but he said, "Why dear, I've deceived you." Before we left, he called me Aning, but after seeing Ethan Gray, he immediately started calling me my dear. I couldn't pull him up after a while, and I also got angry. I looked at him expressionlessly and asked, "What did you deceive me about?" Xia Huayan hesitated for a second. What Ethan Gray said wasn't entirely false. Our marriage was something I worked hard to get. It turned out that Xia Huayan had met me in the capital 4 years ago. At that time, I was out for a stroll with my maid, and my kite got stuck in a tree. Just as I was at a loss, he used his strength to leap up and take the kite down for me. I fell in love with you at first sight, but later I found out that you had a childhood sweetheart. At the time, I only felt sorry for you, hoping that you would be happy. But a few days ago, I heard that Lord Shen was looking for a marriage for you. After inquiring, I learned about your situation. So I proposed to my father-in-law. I pursed my lips. What about your health? I faked it. Xia Huayan simply broke the jar and spilled everything. Yes, it was my good buddies who told me that showing weakness makes it easier to win a woman's heart. I was speechless. What he said was indeed correct. At first, I was afraid that he would die and thought he was weak and frail. I was always afraid that Ethan Gray would bully him, so I naturally protected him a little more. I sighed. I don't blame you. Now that we are husband and wife, we must support each other. He obediently let me pull him up. We stumbled and fell onto the bed. Xia Huayan leaned over me, his eyes gentle. That night, I had another dream. In the dream, there was a churning, surging black sea, gloomy enough to swallow everything. It was terrifying. I felt myself rising and falling with the waves, and a sense of suffocation came over me. Suddenly, I heard Xia Huayan's voice. The storm disappeared without a trace, and the originally turbulent sea slowly calmed down. A bright moon rose, and the giant beast no longer acted strangely. A warm embrace enveloped me, and I couldn't help but hug back. At this moment, the endless sea of suffering turned into sweet dew, pouring down. I only felt that all the suffering and resentment had been completely dispelled. I had a good dream all night. My life with Xia Huayan slowly settled down. After I spoke harshly last time, Ethan Gray really didn't bother me again, and I slowly came out of the shadows. One day, I talked to Xia Huayan's brother about this matter, saying that Ethan Gray still had some face left, but his brother looked at me strangely. So you didn't know? Ethan Gray was really taken care of by Xia Xiong. His leg was even broken. It is said that after that, he indulged in wine, women, and brothels all day long. Later, he was poisoned by the concubine he took and lost his manhood. In a fit of anger, he strangled the concubine to death, and he himself was put in jail. Now he's probably about to be executed. I was stunned, then smiled. Is that so? That's good. The sky is high and the water is wide. A broken mirror cannot be put back together. From now on, I have my own good man. Ethan Gray's life and death naturally have nothing to do with me. My dear, I bought your favorite honey almond cake. I looked at Xia Huayan smiling as he walked towards me. Let's go home. Okay. From then on, day after day, year after year. End. Cribbable feeling welled up in my heart, and I hugged the boy tightly. Thank you. Aunt loves you. My mother came over with a smile and led Lucas Harrington and his grandson to their seats. Amidst everyone's applause, Louis Jr. kissed my lips. I thought that with him by my side on my life's journey, it would surely be incredibly wonderful. The end.